Type development in Google and guess what? Over 2 billion results appear in half a second. Society has reached a level of complexity in which the simple conceptualization of development has become difficult to narrow. After all, what does it stand for? You may recognize some of the following concepts as a probable response for the matter: social reform, economic development, and political stability. Those are three different branches covered by the large concept of development. You may start up by looking closer to one of these multiple branches. For this, let's put together two different societies with antagonist backgrounds. So, in one side, we would have the United States, while on the other side, Iran. The question here is, rather than trying to discover the bad and the good guy, figure out how this cliché can be used to analyze a specific branch regarding political stability, which is whether the existence of political institutions will shape the political development. So, let's come back to our case. You have probably already realized the great difference that stands between these two countries regarding their political system. Excuse me to use your first assumption as my first argument. Political institutions define the degree and not the form of government, which means that they can be seen and thus analyzed at any kind of political systems. To explain this better, let's take a look to how these institutions can be created. Every society has its own social forces, right? Oh, sorry. See social forces as an element of society which has the capacity of causing cultural changes and that influences people. So, mathematically saying, the number of social forces would be proportional to the number of political institutions. This is, the degree of relationship between these forces from complete harmony to total conflict define the necessity and the possibility for the creation of these political institutions. Therefore, the existence of a big number of institutions can be related to the relationships among these political forces, which bring us to another important statement, as the midterm between conflict and harmony can be defined as a common interest conquered by cooperation between the parties. Political institutions would bring people together to fight for the same ideology, promoting the sense of community. Here, Huntington gives us the opportunity for classification of these political institutions by measuring their amount of scope, which would be how extended is the encompassment of the social forces that support these institutions, and strength, the level of institutionalization that will be defined as a process by which organizations acquire value and stability. The level of institutionalization can again be broken into four different components: adaptability, complexity, autonomy, and coherence. But coming back to how this would shape in our case, let's imagine how the scope of institutions would be much wider in the US than in Iran. This happens not only because the United States has a more heterogeneous demographic composition than Iran, but as well because most of the relationships between social forces in there has achieved the midterm condition from harmony to conflict. The last argument Huntington shows to explain us the relationships of these political institutions with the political development in developing countries would be that political institutions have moral and structural dimensions. This happens because the capacity to create political institutions is the capacity to create public interest. And coming back to our case for the last time, we can notice that the private interests have always overtaken the public interest in the Iranian environment, what proves that the relationship between the culture of society and the institutions of politics is a dialectical one. To conclude, it's important to highlight that the main reason why underdevelopment of political institutions shapes a low political development in developing countries is that there is a motivational organization vacuum created by the absence of association, which characterizes societies whose politics are confused and chaotic.